We have Tarini Chandrashekhar, who is going to speak about Panchatantra as a pedagogical tool. She's a trained engineer with an MTech in IIITB 2018, with a 2-year experience as a data scientist at an enterprise AI startup. 2020 onwards, she turned into a full-time freelance writer, humorist, lyricist, storyteller, and educator. She's a trained Bharatanatyam dancer with a B1 in German, and takes writing, storytelling, poetry, public speaking, debate under the umbrella of Alak Niranjan learning through stories. So she's a Tamilian who was born in Kanpur, like many of us, with composite, a product of composite culture. So let's listen to what she has to say about Panchatantra as a pedagogical tool.
Yeah. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. It's a lot of pressure going at the end, just keep a, yeah. Okay. Yes. Okay. Yes. Let's check on this. I'm sorry if I'm a little jumpy, because it so happens that when you're attending a session, all of the points of views and stories are kind of now, cooking inside my head. Emergence is happening. So before I start, I want to just briefly touch upon the origin of storytelling is the origin of Natya Veda. Okay. So origin of Natya Veda is Bharata Muni thought that after as Treta Yuga was ending, people were falling into base desires and they were, having conflicting emotions. So Bharata Muni said, you know what, I will take the Pathya from the verses from Rig Veda, the music from Samaveda, the aesthetics from Yajurveda, and the rasa from Atharvaveda, and bingo bango, sugar spice, everything nice, presto, there was Natya Veda. Okay, so it was for people to feel a little, give them audio-visual entertainment. That is the notion that we all have. But actually, Bharata Muni wanted people to feel a sense of solace in this time of Dvaita. Okay, conflicting emotions is, you have both kinds of emotions. So he wanted people to feel a sense of solace. And that is the origin of Natya Veda. And that is the origin of storytelling. And a part of my thesis, paper, presentation about Panchatantra is also about stopping to think of stories as something cute. It is good that we think of them as cute. Okay, but in thinking that, we kind of miss the bigger message that they are a model of Leela. Okay, this whole world is a Leela, as somebody said, we are all participants, we are all players, and that storytelling, that story is kind of a model of that Leela, a smaller model. And the Sutradhara is the person who conducts and shows, kind of, puts the light on who are the players in that Leela. Okay, so Panchatantra as a pedagogical tool in modern India. So why the peel? Okay, I've started with a small ye. There are two jackals which are there in Panchatantra, Damanaka and Kartaka. Okay, so in my version of contemporary version, Damanaka and Kartaka are having a conversation. They are eating a fruit, and Damanaka says, "Wow, this fruit is so sweet, sour, and delicious. I mean, like, it's so many flavors. I can't even tell what it is. Okay, thank you for sharing it with me. What fruit is this? Why does it taste so?" They're trying to find out why, what is the fruit. So the second jackal says, I don't know what it is, because when I was eating, I put the peel, I just threw the peel away. So I just know the taste of the fruit. Okay, but who cares? The taste is what matters, right? And then after that, these two jackals took the taste and, told all over the world, which is the story of Panchatantra. Panchatantra traveled to 200 countries. Became Aesop's fables and, Canterbury Tales. Basically, there was a Persian king who came here, and he took the story of jackals and he took it to Persia. From Persia, it went to German. It got translated in Arabic, and then from Arabic it went to Syriac, and then from that to German, and then it went to Europe, and from there it became Geoffrey Chaucer's Canterbury Tales. But you see what happened here is the taste was transferred, the Atma was transferred. When I think of a story, I think of Sharir, Man, Atma. Okay. The rasa of the story was transferred, and which is why it is the most translated literary work. But somewhere in transferring the rasa, okay, the peel was thrown away. We didn't get to know the sharira of the text. Okay. We don't know the body of the text because it was so translated. And that is what happens when the rasa is very important. But if it is prioritized over the body, the sharira and the mana, what was the manas of the text? What was the body of the text? So that is why the peel is standing there. He's like, but I contain the why. Okay. Why must it be read? Okay. It is good. It is amazing. Okay. And because there was no why, it was considered a children's story. Okay. And still considered a children's story. It's there in children's curriculums. Now, there is a rule in basketball. It says 2/3 offense and 1/3 defense. Okay. So there's nobody attacking me, but I'll defend the point of context from which, the point of view from which Panchatantra is viewed. Okay. The preparation for Indian civil services, administrative services, which are the place where administrative wisdom is taught, Niti Shastra is taught. There, this is exactly verbatim knowledge from Unacademy and Textbook and all of these preparation websites. They say that education was relegated to religious centers, and Veda, Upanishad, Puranas were the primary religious texts that were taught. And basically, Thomas Macaulay's point was that, opinion, intellect, and morals, these things are not present in Indian education. Okay. Because they thought that religious texts are the only method of instruction and there is no secular literature. Let's consider for a second that Panchatantra is a secular literature, but it was not considered an essential read. Even in Dharampal Ji's A Beautiful Tree, around 1830s Ballari district, in that era, Panchatantra is listed in Ballari district only as lighter literature read. Okay, it is lighter literature. But this is what happens when the peel is taken away, the context is taken away, the sutradhara is taken away. We only have the pearls. Okay. But those pearls can be eaten by a monkey and then be thrown away. Nobody will know they are pearls. Okay. So this thought, this train of thought I constantly come across because I was a data scientist, so I can see biases and see, a train of thought that is constantly seen, that the ancient Indian knowledge systems and the stories, they are acknowledged because of their cultural significance, which is why they are also widely translated. But in appreciating the cultural significance, the body of the literature is not understood and it is almost rejected, which is what so its relegation to the ancient pre-modern era comes from the Western lens that appreciates the culture but deems it religious for it to be fit for a modern learning paradigm. Okay, because they have the supposed difference between the state and the church and the state. So that's why I said supposed difference between the church and the state. But that dualism they also put onto the education, that something that is cultural must not be modern. Okay, it's aesthetic, it's rasa. Okay, but it's not relevant for education. Okay, yeah. So this term, aestheticization of power, was coined by, in the Purva Paksha of Sheldon Pollock, who is he was a very noted Western ethnologist. And it makes quite a lot of sense because I'm going to come to next how people have viewed in their reading of Panchatantra cultural Marxism, which basically tries to dissolve the social mores from bottom up, saying that this is the reason. So when the first time Marxism did not work out, the second time after the World War, Marx thought that the reason why people are not leaving their notion of hierarchies because they are too attached to their cultural mores. So we should probably, divorce the cultural mores and deem it that this is cultural and this is relevant and this is modern. This is not modern. Cultural is not modern. Okay. So that is the lens with which this gentleman, when he analyzed Panchatantra, Mr. Patrick Olivier and McComas Taylor, Olivier states that the central message of the text was that craft and deception constitute the major art of the government. Okay. Yeah. they say that statesmanship and Niti Shastra, there is a diplomacy is basically deceit. Okay, and when it is shown in terms of animals and pashu vyavahar and pashu swabhav, the deceit is even more visible, when we read it in terms of pashus. And Taylor not only dismissed the self-acclaimed text, but also projected it as a facade to exert a truth effect on the reader. This is very interesting. Why the text is not taken seriously and taught in management institutions and administrative institutions is the fact that it seems like a moral story. Okay, and here I had a question. We were talking, backstage, and very sweetly, Shripada asked me that, what is the point of entertainment if there is no moral lesson? Okay, and we think of these stories as moral lessons, which is how they have been taught to the kids. In fact, it is a minute form of leela that happens, the play that happens in administrative institutions. That play and the dharma of everybody, every player in that play. That is what the stories mean. But that play is totally lost, and it's seen as a play between the oppressor and the oppressed. Which is when we look at it from the lens of, there is lion, there is the bull. You can see there is a priestly class, there is a ruling class, there is the bhritya. Okay. So a person who is used to seeing classes in the society sees that this world is a classist society or is a casteist society. So it works out in this moor, in this cultural moor, but otherwise this is not an important text at all. Okay. He says it's an emanation of Brahmanical parasocial manifesto, at once the product of an orthodox tradition. Basically, it's not very important to read because it is very casteist. Okay, yeah. So, that the Jaina Purnabhadra wrote the broadly Brahmanical Panchatantra throws into question the relationship between the... Yeah. So, because the text is written in passive voice. Now, this is something so interesting, that the text is written as this was being said, this was being done, and then it was said. Okay. In Sanskritam only, it is written in passive voice. It is analyzed as taking away the agency of the listener and the speaker. Means they're saying you're trying to exert a truth effect. You're saying that this is only right. Okay. You're not giving agency to the speaker and the listener. There is no choice. People don't have a choice to analyze it because it is written in passive voice. Okay. This gentleman also follows the school of Sheldon Pollock, and he stated that in his references. So now, having said all of this Purva Paksha, that this is the notion with which Panchatantra is viewed, that it is the world in which it is set in is not an ideal world. It's a casteist world. So the morals are also very skewed. So let's just take the rasa and move on. What's the harm in it? And that is what I call cultural Marxism. That you take the rasa, but you ignore the sharir and the mana of the text. Why was it written? Yeah. So, Bhumika, the introduction that, as Sir also pointed out, that Finel Sir also pointed out, that the three princes, they are Moodha students, basically. And the king is like, they are good for nothing. I should, how much time do I have? 4 minutes, okay. I must rush. Okay. So, they go to Vishnu Sharma, and Vishnu Sharma delves into the teachings, and, he uses the method of frame narrative. A sutra. Now, there are 5 tantras. There is Mitra Beda, Mitra Samprapti, Kakolukyam, Apariksha Karakam, and Labdha Pranasham. So, each story has a sutra at the beginning, which is called the frame narrative. Now, this frame narrative has also traveled across the world, and we can see its actual physical manifestation in real form, in the form of Russian dolls, in the form of, the mandalas, Russian dolls. In fact, because I'm a computer engineer, I say, there is a concept of recursion loops. Okay, how you solve a problem by delving deeper. And so basically, if I have to solve 5 factorial, then I go 5 into 4 factorial, 4 into 3 factorial, 3 into 2 factorial, 1 factorial. So I divide it into sub problems, and I solve this problem, and then it goes on and on and on. And that is the kind of like koshas, you know. So the story itself is designed like koshas. So it is important that you know the frame narrative. Because when I come here, I say, Panchatantra is highly judged. And then I go about my... So when I say Panchatantra is highly judged, this is me giving you the frame narrative, giving you the context which will make the rest of the discussion make sense. Okay. In public speaking, we call it the hook. You know, you give the context of what the rest of the thing is going to be. Yeah. Because otherwise, if you remove the frame narrative, there can be n number of interpretations of the text. However it can be interpreted. You have removed the narrator. Okay. And the beauty is that the text is written in the way that they don't want the narrator to influence the narrative. But that you don't acknowledge the narrator only, it means it takes away from the sharira of the text. So, textualizing text narrative. This is Lori Meller is a teacher who has employed story within story structure of Indian religious and secular tales, and Mahabharata also. Now, I want to go back to the point of dialogue that happens between two people before the story is started. You know. So in writing, we say whenever you want to introduce a conflict or some kind of resolution, you give a thesis, you give an antithesis, there is a synthesis. The trika of thesis, antithesis, synthesis. You need the right, left, and there is the government. Yeah. So in Mahabharata also, the discussion is happening between Ganesha and Vyasa. Vyasa is narrating, Ganesha is understanding, and there is the Mahabharata. There is a dialogue before each story, okay? And that dialogue gives rise to the frame narrative, which in turn gives rise to the stories. Now, how is it a pedagogical text? Basically, at the beginning of the Sanskrit text, before the frame narrative starts, there is the story that, you know, there is the king, and when he goes to Vishnu Sharman invokes all the gods. Okay, he invokes all the previous Arthashastris. He invokes Shukra, Kautilya, and Brahaspati. All of the previous Arthashastris to, you know, these are all the people who came before me. Give me the strength, give me the courage to create, synthesize. Now, Fainalsa talked about storytelling being a 21st century skill. The Bloom's taxonomy that is, considered in the international schools, it says you have to read, you have to memorize, understand, evaluate, and then apply, evaluate, and then create. Yeah, right? Look at Vishnu Sharman. He was an 80-year-old Brahmin. He used all his life experiences and the knowledge of all the Dharma Shastra, Artha Shastra, Saundarya Shastra. He definitely memorized it in those times. It was the 1st century AD. He understood it. He applied it because he was an 80-year-old person. He must have used it in his life. And then using that, he created the Panchatantra. So he used the 21st century skill in the 1st century itself. Okay, so it is definitely horrible to say that, just look at it as a cute story. Vishnu Sharma thanks Manu Brahaspati. From the essence of all the Shastras emerged the Panchatantra, like the Natya Veda from the 4 Vedas. So first story, the lion and the bull. I'm sorry, I'm running short of time, but lion and the bull, basically lion is the ruling class, bull is I'll take 2 minutes more, please. Yeah. Lion and the bull, basically it's the ruling class and the scholarly class. And they think that in the story what happens is that the lion needs some kind of is in need of alliances, and the bull, he has hurt himself. They enter the 2 jackals and they kind of negotiate an alliance between the 2. The 2 became very close, they become friends, but now the 2 jackals are now very nervous. They are like, this is too bad. The ghoda ghas se dosti karega to khayega kya? Okay, this is bad for the kingdom. Okay, so he sows the seeds of discord, and the lion ends up killing the bull. But you see, this is such a brilliant commentary on how the state and the civil society is always in tension. How intellectual concerns always fall prey to the political and the administrative concerns. Yeah, but it is not a predator-prey story. in fact, if everybody in that story would have acted according to their own dharma, this wouldn't have happened, right? But they acted according to their manodharma. These are imperfect characters, okay? The lion is anxious. The bull is very anxious. That is why they rely on the two jackals. The power actually lies with the two jackals. But the two jackals are also shown to be, they are kind of conversating with each other, negotiating, but ultimately, once manodharma falls, it makes them ultimately sow the seeds of discord between the two. So,
The 2 minutes are up actually.
okay.
You have a whole lot of slides left. It's
I just want to end it by saying just one thing, that it's a highly misunderstood text, and there are animal motifs which have been used in the story for certain reasons, certain guna swabhava, and it's a kavya. And the prayojana of the kavya, we have just only uncovered the rasa. The prayojana of the kavya has to yet be subjected to literary criticism according to Indic thought. Okay, so that should happen. And yeah.
Thank you so much. So now we have combined the Q&A for the last two speakers.
My question is to Tarini. You mentioned in the beginning, as you started the slide presentation, you said that Panchatantra was for the purpose to give joy, pleasure in the time of Dvaita. Is that mentioned somewhere?
That was Natya Veda. That was not Panchatantra. Panchatantra's prayojan is in the frame narrative only. It's to teach statecraft and administrative wisdom.
So Natya Shas, what is it?
Natya Veda.
Natya Veda was to give...
Natya Veda was created by Bharata Muni to impart... Yes, ma'am. Sorry. It was Brahma. Sorry. Passed it on to... Yeah. No. You're correct.
Nice.
You're absolutely correct. So that was Natya Veda for the imparting wisdom and spiritual wisdom through stories to the weary. Weary and tired is very important, because when there is conflict of your left and your right, and people are conflicting, so they are tired all the time.
So what did you mean by Dvaita in this context? What did you mean by Dvaita exactly?
Dvaita means people, there is no spiritual, there is no bhakti in their lives. People, there is no bhakti in their life, there is no devotion in their life. So they are torn between this is good, this is bad.
So you're essentially looking at dualism, any general dualistic approach?
And the story focuses always on the Leela. It through the empathy of each character, it shows that there is a big emergent lesson.
So just trying to understand that you're not talking about any specific duality versus the mental, the mind.
Mental duality.
Tarini ji, she comes from a Dvaita Vedanta family. They are Dvaita Vedantins in their personal life.
Okay, thank you for giving me that context.
So, you are using the word Dvaita in a derogatory way, in a pejorative way.
Okay.
Any follower of Dvaita Vedantin will be offended by that.
Okay, my bad.
Yeah.
It's not offense.
No, natural. It's not correct also.
Kind of different,
in
right?
any Indic person would not use the word Dvaita in a pejorative sense.
Okay.
Even an Advaiti, for example, he doesn't use the word Dvaita in a pejorative sense.
Okay.
Probably you were trying to
I said Dvaita,
replace
emotions, that good and bad, jealousy and
Dvandva,
dualistic.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
Dvandva.
So I would
conflicting. Yeah.
No, I would
Dvandva is
Dvandva is the word that
I would also like to point it out to the previous presenter about the Devi Mahatma, the Mahishasura Mardini, the Chandipat Abhishek. Yeah, so that was my comment for you also. Yeah, because when you said Dvaita to Advaita, it makes it seem that, it is this Dvaita. Whereas you actually meant the conflicting part of it, right? You were looking at the conflict. The mind, the mind
without
the mind in its
reconciliation
duality, isn't it?
So I was basically looking at conflict from like the subject-object duality. from that perspective.
Yeah, so but Shastriya, it's not a Shastriya way of using those words.
No, I didn't use Dvaita. I used the duality or the division thing.
Dvanta. So did you say, he did not say Dvaita, so please rest assured, please relax. Yeah, so. Yeah. Oh, so you relax, please relax now. Nobody said Dvaita. Did anybody say Dvaita? No, I'm here.
Any other questions to Fainal ji or anybody else? You have
Sorry, I just suddenly, I'm sorry to, because I've studied the Natya Shastra, therefore, Natya is essentially dramaturgy it's a retelling of story. The story tradition comes before. It doesn't begin with the Natya Shastra because the Natya Shastra itself, as Bharata narrates, there is a staging of the Samudra Manthana. Therefore, it is a formal dramaturgical presentation of stories that previously exist. The storytelling tradition goes back to the Rigvedic period. From Indra and Vritra, from there it begins. And even the story of Usha's rising, you have so many little stories. So I don't think it should be located at the period of the Natya Shastra. Yeah. Yeah, the visual representation starts there. Yeah. Not even starts there. That's also a synthesis, I think, of previous.
I had a very long WhatsApp chat with Tarini ji before she came up with this paper. And there also, again, the whole discussion was whether rasa is applicable here or not, archetypal criticism is applicable here or not. There was so much of no unnecessary academic branches being brought into this analysis. She is probably picking up from various other branches where she has to do a lot more work. For example, if that was rasa, Nagaraj will raise and say, hey, Rasa Shastra, it's me. No. And Natya. And somebody would come, no, that's not Natya Shastra, it's me. So you have to be very careful in this kind of audience. If you use the word of a particular Shastra, there would definitely be somebody who would come and say, no, that's not that. I am a scholar in that. I am an expert in that. That is why I was trying to avoid all that. Before, through my chats. Yeah, that is, so that all this, even that video that you shared with me about Niti and Rasa, even that person who is speaking in that video.
Yeah, he didn't cover Rasa at all. In the text also he didn't.
He was also committing the same mistake of venturing into the areas where he is not an expert. So that's the problem. If you, the academics is such a problem. You cannot venture into these areas where you are not an expert, because there would be sitting, those experts would be sitting and they say, oh, that's my area, please don't say that. So that we have to be very, very careful in doing this. With Devi Bhagavatam myth also, I've been asking him throughout, before this presentation, is there a pedagogy in it? Is there a pedagogy in it? He has been saying, yes, I'm going to show how it is pedagogical. Even today, he did not show anything pedagogical about it. So it is, and with many presentations, Sahanaji was coming and saying, what is pedagogical in this? And all that. So that's how we have to be very careful. Okay.
Interestingly, Panchatantra talks about diplomacy. One of the
Panchatantra's diplomacy is a different level of diplomacy.
By presentation.
But probably you are very diplomatic in bringing diplomacy where it is not applicable.